So, Russ, I have to congratulate ESPN and the ESPY Awards because they got it right. Yesterday, they named Jonathan Taves the Hockey Player of the Year, unseating Sidney Crosby for the first time. I think he had been named 2 years in a row. I'd like to congratulate ESPN for getting it right, for getting the right player, and for actually realizing that there is a fourth professional sport, and it's called hockey. So now, for the next 364 days, since they don't have a contract with them, they can ignore hockey until next year when they name the next Hockey Player of the Year award.
But they did a good job. I agree with you. It's funny because and now they've picked up so many fringe sports. It's unbelievable. Like I actually saw recently some neighbors got us to play cornhole, and I don't know if you know what that is, but okay. I didn't even know what it was, right? And so we're playing cornhole, and then 3 weeks later I see ESPN's got the World Cornhole Championships. And what's funny about that is that goes back to the roots of ESPN, because when ESPN was a nothing cable station and I used to get it on Long Island, they used to have the World Ping Pong Championships. I was watching stuff like that because that's all they had, right?
Right.
So to me, that was sort of interesting. Australian rules football was the first place, but then they got big, right? And then all that sort of went away, and now it's sort of coming back. Some of those weird things are sort of creeping back for them.
Well, and I've noticed also in the news the last couple weeks, Bill Simmons and ESPN have gone their separate ways. They are apparently parting ways with Keith Olbermann as well. I've heard rumors of them parting ways with Colin Cowherd. So they're sort of shedding these big salaried people. Maybe they are going to a more stripped down sporting, maybe, they're not getting rid of the NFL. They're not getting rid of the NBA or Major League Baseball.
But that's what's costing them so much money. And so now somebody has finally done a cost analysis there and said, hey, maybe we shouldn't have like 15 analysts when we do a football game. I think they're starting to realize that there's a cost factor here. So that's just what happens. It's no part of the business.
Yeah, I guess. But, I'm sort of saying it truthfully, but also a little bit in jest. We know that that ESPN is going to have a role in the World Cup coverage next August. So maybe during that 2 or 3 weeks leading up to it, they'll actually cover it, and then they'll disappear until the ESPYs the following year.
No, they don't totally disappear. Let's be fair. I mean, Steve Levy and Barry Melrose do reports all the time. I do see him at big events. I see him at the Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
so and Linda Cohen does a lot on their radio. We have to give her credit too.
Yeah, and Pierre LeBrun and Scott Burnside do a great job on the website. I'm just saying compared to the other major sports that they have contracts with, their coverage of hockey is significantly reduced.
Yeah, it's minimal. We'll call it minimal.
Yeah, muted. Okay. Scanning the headlines this morning, I noted the retirement of 44-year-old Martin Ruchinski, who had not played in the NHL since 2008. He played for, I think, over a half dozen teams.
The Rangers being one of
them. Colorado Avalanche. But the reason that was notable is he was the last active player to have ever played for the Quebec Nordiques.
Oh, that's it, huh?
Yeah. And I felt a little sad. I mean, we know what's going to hopefully happen with Quebec City getting either an expansion franchise or whatever is going to happen in the next few years. But that's sort of that team moved out of Quebec 20 years ago for Colorado. It doesn't seem that long, but it was 20 years ago. And I talked to you about the franchise 4. That came up with the Major League All-Star Game, and I was going to do something. But here's one we can do together. The Quebec Nordiques. You cannot include guys who went to prominence with the Colorado Avalanche. So you have to eliminate, the Sakic's and Patrick Waugh, obviously, because he played for the Nordiques. So just purely Nordiques. What would the franchise 4 be for you?
That's a tough one because I got to really think, because now you've eliminated a lot of guys. Rene Goulet, could he be one of them?
Michel Goulet, yeah.
Michel Goulet, sorry.
Yeah, no, I make the same mistake because Rene Goulet was a wrestler, WWF back in the day. Yeah, Michel Goulet. I mean, to me, there's two definites: Michel Goulet and Peter Stastny.
Yeah, Stastny is a definite. I gotta think. I haven't really thought about the Nordiques in a long time.
I would have to say that maybe Anton Stastny would be as well.
Yeah, I would say Anton Stastny is a good one because he was a great player. Now, do we put a coach in there? Do we put Michel Bergeron in there?
I know, and this will be controversial because a lot of people hate him. I would put Dale Hunter. I think Dale Hunter. I mean, I know.
I could see putting Dale Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, I know in Buffalo he has his detractors. I mean, he did cross-check Mike Ramsey across the face. He did try to fight Tom Barrasso. He was actually public enemy and number one in Buffalo in the early '80s. But he was a really good player.
Great at it. He was great at it.
Yeah, he was a great antagonist.
No, I like those four. I'm comfortable with those four.
Okay, well, let's just go on this for a minute here. Obviously, you've written books on the Rangers, so I think you're fairly prepared.
Don't put me on the spot with that.
Well, okay.
Well, I mean, look, we ranked the book 100 Ranger greats. You want me to just read down the top four and say that's it? I mean, you are putting me on the spot with that, but I'll do it. I'll play.
Okay.
All good.
Okay, so give me your top four, your franchise four Rangers.
Well, we'll definitely Bill Cook has to be one of them. Mm-hmm. He is a largely forgotten guy, and it's a shame because he was like the Maurice Richard of his day. I mean, he was scoring like 25 goals in that dead puck era. I mean, that's, unheard of. Frank Boucher is another. Mm-hmm. He's just another tremendous player that if I asked some Ranger fans in their 20s, would it shock me if they never heard of him? Probably not. I'm going to go Rod Gilbert because he does have most of the records. He played for them the longest. His service is still with the club. I mean, he's still with them. Mm-hmm. So Gilbert is definitely worthy. And, I think this fourth one is going to probably ruffle some feathers. But, we did that book in 2009. And so, like, if I redid the book, there are some rankings that would change. And I think Henrik Lundqvist has earned his place in there. I know some people are like, well, he hasn't won a Stanley. You know what? He's already the best goalie they've ever had. Doesn't matter if he's won a Stanley Cup or not, in my eyes.
Yeah, and I mean, with Toronto, I mean, they're unveiling a number, like they're unveiling number 4 of the Legends Row. They're going to do like 11 or 12 of these bronze statues outside of the Air Canada Center. So it would sort of be lazy of me to choose the 4 that they've chosen so far, which is Teeter Kennedy, Daryl Sittler, Johnny Bauer, and Boreas Salming. Okay. Of those 4, I would definitely choose Teeter Kennedy and would have to choose Sittler.
Yeah, you have to go with Sittler.
Yeah. I would probably put Dave. I mean, I definitely would put Dave Key on it. I mean, everybody agrees that arguably he's the greatest Leaf, but because of the animosity between him and the Leaf organization, it's a question now whether he will be put on Legends Row because he just doesn't want to have anything to do with the organization right now. I mean,
he's a huge name.
Yeah, he's a huge name. He's a great player. He won 4 Stanley Cups with them between 62 and 67. And he was really raked over the coals by Harold Ballard in the 70s when he went to the WHA and then tried to come back, and he blocked him from coming back. So there was a lot of stuff there, and I hope they get it straightened out because to many of this generation and the previous generation, he's considered the greatest Leaf.
Yep.
I would put Tim Horton as one of the franchise, and believe me, there's so many great.
There's a lot of guys like this.
It's really. I mean, even like with
the Rangers. I mean, you're going back 80-something years. It's so hard.
I mean, you could easily put Charlie Conacher in there. You could easily put Turk Broda and Salming. But to me, I would go Keon Horton, Sittler, and Teeter Kennedy. And I'm sure I'm sure the people who are big Doug Gilmour fans and Matt Sundin fans and Wendell Clark fans would probably raise a fit, but it's tough. I'm going to put a poll up on my blog later this afternoon. I'll put like 8 or 9 names on there and see what the fans think. I know one of the radio stations in Toronto did something similar yesterday, but I wanted to do it. Okay, let's get started here. I mean, let's do.
I will say this one other thing for the few fans that have given you the finger, while watching this. I did watch Boya Salming play, but I have studied the career of Horton too, and it's basically different eras, different kind of players. But even when Horton became a Ranger, and I spoke to Emile Francis as to why they got Horton, they wanted that physical presence and the intimidating presence besides his really good defensive play, even at an advanced age. And so, that pretty much told me the greatness of that player. So while Boyer Salming was lighting it up offensively as a defenseman, he wasn't as good a defender as Tim Horton. That's really what it boils down to.
Right. I mean, Horton, see, the thing is, Horton had that physicality even into his 40s. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. He was in his 40s, and they still wanted him.
After the Rangers, he went to Buffalo and he tutored guys like Jim Schoenfeld until his unfortunate passing. Yeah. He was an effective defenseman. So, but I'm a big Salming fan, and I'm one who thinks that Salming should have won a Norris in some of those years where guys like Robinson and Potvin were dominating.
Yeah, I think there's a fair case to be made there. I do.
Yeah, I think the thing was, at that point he was a Swede. It was a different time. He was a different style of defenseman. He was not Mr. Rough and Tumble. He had to prevent other players from taking advantage of him physically by essentially being a slasher and a hacker, because
he was the first great Swede I can remember watching in the NHL,
Yeah, because if he hadn't been a surgical with his stick, he would have had guys like Paul Holmgren and Mel Bridgman beating the crap out of him. So he had to do that for his own survival.
Yep.
Okay, let's start the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, July 16th, 2015.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockeybuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Don't want to start off with something that's sort of depressing, because everybody when we bring up Arizona and the Phoenix situation, they get a little miffed and depressed, especially people in Toronto and in Canada, because they think that team should be moved to a Canadian market.
Right.
But there was a report out of Phoenix today that the Coyotes, I mean, there hasn't been any settlement of the legal situation between Glendale and the Coyotes, the breach of contract, whether they're going to be able to stay there long term or not. And apparently the Phoenix Sun ownership has extended a olive branch to the Coyotes that if that situation doesn't work out, they can play at what's now called the U.S. Airways Arena, which used to be called America West. Right. Now, the situation is, and in this article, they sort of cleared it up. The Suns operate that building like the Coyotes operate the Gila River Arena in Glendale.
Right.
So if they move to downtown Phoenix, they're going to be,
tenants of the Phoenix Suns.
Exactly. So there's not going to be any $15 million in operating funds provided by the municipality to run the arena. So they're going to be operating at a loss. And if they go in with the Suns in a building in either Phoenix or Scottsdale, which has been talked about, it's going to be the same situation. So I don't know whether the whole new building thing, along with the Suns, is going to work if they're going to be tenants.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work. I mean, I'll be very honest about it. I think if you're a Coyotes fan, get to the games this year, because I think this is the last time you're going to see them there. I just don't think they're going to be able to work this out. Even if their attendance improved, again, I can go back and you can find the stats on ESPN as to what their attendance was before they left that building, and it was still like 26th in the league. And so at the end of the day, they're always hovering around 26 to 29, 30. I mean, that's what they are. That's where, what we're talking about. So I don't think that's going to improve. And I think the one thing the fans haven't really taken into for a year, that has really helped them stay afloat. And without that, they're in deep trouble.
Yeah, they need that subsidy to be able to survive. And, maybe after 5 years, if things had stayed the way they were, that ownership, because there was a certain dollar amount that if they lost a certain dollar amount, they had an out to go elsewhere, and maybe they would have gone elsewhere after the 5 years. This is just hastening the process. So, I mean, that means, there's a crap or get off the pot date here of probably 12 months, I'd say after this season, that they're going to have to determine whether they're, going to stay there long term. And
we'll probably know by the draft next year.
Yeah. And honestly, wouldn't it be weird if they get the first pick and they take Austin Matthews and they're not in Arizona anymore?
Right.
The cachet of drafting a kid from Scottsdale is that, there's the hometown boy to build around. And if they move to Quebec City or someplace like that, then there is no cachet for that. I mean, he's going to be a great young player, but there is that extra thing.
Yeah, entirely possible. I mean, at this point, I think it's more probable than possible.
Yeah. There were a slew of signings yesterday, and I didn't realize why until later on. Apparently, that was yesterday at 5 p.m. was the deadline for players to accept their qualifying offers or go to continue on to arbitration.
Now that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, and we saw the Rangers, and we were talking about this yesterday, and we saw that Jesper Fast signed a 2-year deal, JT Miller signed a 1-year deal, both for under $1 million, which I think cleared up a little bit the situation with the Rangers. I mean,
gives them 7.3, right?
Yeah.
And so, let's just say Stepan's going to get 7.025 for the year. They're going to have very little under the cap going into the season, but and Duclair gets $125,000 roster bonus or something that's a carryover for them.
Oh.
So it's I don't know if it's a roster bonus, but it's some sort of bonus. Someone just told me about it. And so, they're going to have hundreds of thousands of dollars under the cap when they start the season, but it seems like it could be fit in. So but now if they get an O'Reilly where it's 7.5, then the summer cap is going to kick in and the overage, and then they're going to have to do something before the opening of camp.
They may be forced to carry 22 instead of 23. Maybe Jeff Gordon, hopefully he has the same relationship with Don Maloney as Glenn Sather did, and he can dump a Tanner Glass off of him for little or nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to
something might have to happen, but that's only if they hit that 7. If they go over, to me, if they go over that 7.3, then yeah, they're in trouble.
Yeah, but ironically, in 3 other situations, I went through the arbitration list. In 3 other situations, there's a little bit of speculation of whether teams may simply walk away from players. Now, we know that this is not, it's not a common occurrence. It happened with Clark MacArthur a few years ago when he was in Atlanta. Didn't they just not qualify him? I don't think they walked away in arbitration.
Okay, maybe they didn't qualify him. You might be right about that one, but there's been some others, yeah.
Yeah, there's been a few, and remember MacArthur, he could have made, I think it was over $3 million with Atlanta. They walked away. The Leafs signed him for $1 million, and then he ended up getting his money later when he re-signed with Toronto and then went to Ottawa. So it benefited him. But there are 3 situations I looked at, and let's go through them here. And I'll give you the 3 options. Likely,
I want to say this before you go with the list.
Yeah.
Somebody posted the other day, 3.8 is the number that once it goes over that, you could walk away.
Right. And all these players are probably going to get over that 3.8.
Okay.
Based on now, and we'll go through them. First, we'll say we'll determine whether they go over the 3.8. I think they all will. If they do, then let's go either likely, possible, or no chance that the team walks away.
Okay.
The first one is Mike Hoffman from Ottawa. Rookie season, after playing most of the year last year in Binghamton, he scores 27 goals, 25 years old, and his representatives are saying that he wants over $4 million. The thing with him is, defensively he's not. He's an offensive player. He's purely, I think he's a one zone player. And Ottawa is notorious in terms of being fiscally conservative.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they're in the habit of walking away from 25-year-old players, but if he gets too much, They might. So what do you think? Likely, possible, or no chance that they walk away if he gets over 4?
I'm going to say no chance on this one because they just don't have enough offense. I think they're going to have to pony up in this situation. I don't think they're going to have a choice.
Yeah, I mean they see, the thing is they're not up against the wall here when it comes to, they just have to open up the pocketbook a little more. And
right. Well, I'm thinking 27 goals. That's what, second on their team?
yeah, I think so.
But yeah, you're going to let a guy who's second on your team walk? I don't think so. I don't think that would play well.
And they've already shaved some money off their payroll by moving Legwand and moving Leonard, so they should be able to afford it. But the second one is the aforementioned Michael Del Zotto. Now he wasn't qualified by the Preds. He signed late in the summer with the Flyers. He had tied his career high with 10 goals. The Flyers have less than $5 million in cap space. Now the question is, do you think Del Zotto is going to get over 3.8? If he does, with the depth of the Flyers defense in terms of the young guys that they have, Moran, Goss, Despair, Provorov, and the players they have under contract right now, do they walk away? Do they walk away from Del Zotto if he gets a high enough number?
Well, I think he's going to get right around that number. I do, because of years of service and the goal factor, because not every defenseman scoring that many goals, right? I mean, that's double-digit goals in this league in this year is a pretty good number. And his defense is pretty good now, although I don't know how much that really shows up in arbitration. I think it's more about the offensive numbers. I don't know how much analytics plays a factor. We don't really hear about it, so I don't know. I'm going to have to ask some agents.
Yeah, and they're going to be using them in the negotiating process or in the arbitration process.
Sure, they're going to use them, but I just don't know, like, when they factor it in, how big of a factor is it? A 10% factor? Is it a 20? You know what I mean? That's right. Sort of gauge, but I don't think they would walk away from them. So I'm going to say no chance. I think they will get the signing done, and if they have to, they'll be right up against the cap, the same as the Rangers.
And the curious thing here, and I think I'm correct on this, if they do go to arbitration, if they go to the actual hearing, there is a second buyout window that is opened for these teams that go to arbitration. If that happens, is it possible that the Flyers exercise that option and buy out somebody like Umberger or Mark Streit with 2 years left in their deals?
Streit, definitely not. Streit at 50 points. So there's no way.
Or Luke Schenn.
Not even Luke Schenn, no, but Umberger, perhaps.
Okay. The third name, and I thought this up, or I brought this up after reading Chuck Gormley's piece on.
Wait, before the Chuck Gormley thing,
yeah,
I got to ask you, so what makes you say that about Mark Streit? And I'm not picking on you, but I'm just picking on, like, the national media for sort of maligning Mark Streit. Like, so we know he's not a great defensive player, but I don't think he was all that defensively challenged last year. I think his foot speed has picked up ever since the Olympics. I think he got a second charge in his career. But I'm just saying, like, if we're talking about guys, now he's a -8, but the Flyers weren't great.
Right.
He had 52 points. I mean, where's the factor where he deserves a little bit of respect?
I just think I'm not saying he's a bad defenseman. I'm just saying he's not a $5.25 million defenseman. And he's got 2 years left, as opposed to, I mean, if you bought out Andrew McDonald,
50-point defenseman. I mean, if we start doing the list, it's not a big list.
Yeah. If you bought out Andrew McDonald, you'd have a cap hit for 10 years. Whereas with Streit, it would be 4. Now you might. Yeah, so it's age, it's salary, it's the fact that they have a lot of young kids. I mean, he's not a bad defenseman. I just don't think he's worth the money that they're paying him right now. Now, I think Umberger is the poster child for a buyout because he's hideous. He's been terrible, and they can't.
Now, he was injured last year, so I think they would rather give him a chance and see what he looks like, but they may not be able to get that chance. Right? It all depends.
Right, and Vinny, we've gone over that territory much too much. I mean, it's that contract is. I mean, the only benefit in that contract is the fact the last 2 years are significantly less than the cap hit. So if they wait until after next year to buy him out, it's $6 million spread over 4 years, or 2/3 of $6 million, which is $4 million divided by 4. It's $1 million cap hit for 4 years. So I think he'll be bought out next summer if they don't trade him someplace else.
Right, unless for some reason he gets revived under the Hackstall system. We'll see.
The third name on the list was Marcus Johansson from the Capitals, and I bring this up because Chuck Gormley from CSN brought it up in a column yesterday. Basically, the Capitals are under what I call an arbitration double whammy here with Holtby and with Johansson. Holtby's hearing is on the 23rd of July. Johansson's on the 29th. They're $11 million under the cap, and whether it's arbitration or a long-term contract, they agree with Holtby, he's probably going to make in the neighborhood of $5 to $6 million a year. So that leaves, around $5 million left for Johansson, who could get, again, close to that $4 million range. It doesn't leave them a lot of wiggle room once these two players are signed for them to do anything else. Gormley thinks that there's a possibility that the Caps could bail on Johansson, and the reason it came on my radar is because he also mentioned that they would then trade for Tyler Bozak from the Maple Leafs, or speculating that they might trade for Bozak, moving a guy like Brooks Like or somebody of that nature, or a prospect.
I'm going to say possible, but that's it. I'm only going to go as high as possible because I believe the Caps were pretty happy with Johansson's play. He definitely made a jump last year. I had a chance to really chat with him a lot for those couple of days for the Winter Classic. I saw a difference in him. I saw a difference in him in that game. I think he scored the game winner in that game, right? And then he had a nice season. I don't know how many points he ended up with, but under the Trotz system, he was definitely a better player. I don't know if the Caps are all of a sudden that deep where they could just do this and then expect to get Bozak in a trade. That's a lot to expect.
Well, he scored a career-high 20 goals. I think he had 44 points.
Yeah.
But if I'm correct, and I didn't watch a ton of Caps games during the regular season, I think he played a lot with Ovechkin and with Backstrom. So
played a lot with Backstrom, but he's got a lot of speed, and he does have a lot of skill on his own too.
And where I think they're coming from here is the fact they bring in TJ Oshie.
Right.
I think TJ Oshie could replace him on that top line with Backstrom and Ovechkin. They bring in Justin Williams. He's even though he's in his mid-30s, he's still a top 6 guy. They brought him in to be a top six guy. And you've got the young guys like Wilson and Kuznetsov, who are probably going to be looking for more ice time. So maybe maybe they can trade him, or maybe they can afford to walk away from him if the money is too much. But I think they need to bring somebody in if they do get rid of him. And the whole thing with Bozak is Bozak's money is cost certain. They know he's going to be $4.2 million for the next 3 years. There's not going to be a 1-year thing with Johansson, and then he may get more if he has another big year. So there's price certainty there.
I'm going to go possible, and I'll stick with that.
Yeah, I think possible as well. Okay, the next thing here, and I came up after I had a few people contact me. They liked the free agent forecast we had yesterday. Right. So I had something similar, and I actually found some theme music for it, Russ.
Right.
So here we go.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. It's Will They Find an NHL Job? I'm Gene Rayburn. No, just kidding.
Like 70s porn music. That's what they used to use, on Match Game.
Match Game. There you go. Okay, so we have 6 veteran players that were either bought out or became UFAs this summer that have yet to sign with teams. Now, I didn't choose anybody from the list that we had yesterday, so these are 6 new players. I don't know if we want to go on a scale of 1 to 10 or just say yes or no. I'll leave it up to you.
I'll go yes or no.
Okay, we'll go yes or no. Will these players be on an NHL roster in October? Okay. Number 1, he scored 6 goals for $7 million. He was bought out by the Carolina Hurricanes. His name is Alex Semin.
If you did What's My Line, I would have known it after the 6 goals. I am going to say he will have a job.
Yeah, I think somebody's going to be desperate enough to give him. Yeah, I think he'll get a job if he is willing to take. And I've heard his representatives are saying that he is willing to take a 1-year cheap job. Like I would say probably $1 million.
Yeah,
and just to prove himself that he can play. If he true to his word there, then I think he'll find a team who is desperate for scoring.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, okay. Number 2, he's 41 years old. He played defense for the Dallas Stars and the Montreal Canadiens last year. He was traded to the Habs in November and did not play much after Jeff Petrie was acquired from Edmonton. And I don't think he played a game in the playoffs. His name is Sergei Gonchar.
Yeah, he's done. No. A big fat no.
Big fat no. I think I'm going to agree with you because I saw him in a few games last year with Montreal, and
on the power play he could still move the puck, but that was it.
Yeah, he was pretty much a one-dimensional defenseman, or he in his day was what a guy like Drew Doughty is now. He in the sense that his defense was his offensive ability. He was not a defenseman. He was a rover. He was a guy who would jump into the attack. He would score.
I do think Doughty's a better defender, but I get what you're saying about the offensive numbers. Yeah,
I do too. But yeah, there is that rover quality for Doughty, and I think Gonchar is the same thing. But when you start to lose a step, you can't do that, and I think that showed last year. So I think he's done.
Yep.
Okay. He is 32 years old. He was a 4th pick overall of the Florida Panthers. He signed a big free agent deal with the Detroit Red Wings and was bought out after 2 injury-plagued seasons. His name is Stephen Weiss.
I'm saying he's starting the season without a job. It's a no.
Ooh. Yeah, I sort of get the Scott Gomez vibe here, in the sense that he's a lot younger than Gomez, but in the sense that, like, if somebody has an injury, Stephen Weiss is on their list as the first or second call. But I don't know whether somebody's going to say, sure, come to camp.
But nobody's pursuing him.
Right. He's the insurance. All of a sudden, Mike Fisher goes down with Nashville. I'll call up Stephen Weiss. Yeah.
He might get a call at Chuck E. Cheese one day. Hey, get the skates ready.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. He is 38 years old. He is an unrestricted free agent defenseman, obviously, who played recently 3 seasons for the New York Islanders, played previously in Edmonton, Anaheim, and LA, I believe. He was reportedly going to sign with a team in the Swiss League, but thinks he has a chance of hooking on with an NHL club. Does Lubomir Wisnowski play in the NHL next season?
Absolutely no. It's a big no. It's like it was over for him a year ago, but he was still under contract. There's no way.
I think there's a chance. I think I'm more yes than no, because unless his mobility is completely gone, I don't think he's going to go back.
How many games has this guy played? I got to look it up now. Now you're making me look up his number.
Okay. I think he played in the 50-game range last year with the Islanders, and he's not going to go back to the Islanders because they have a lot of young defensemen. They brought in Boychuk and Leddy. I don't think they need him to come back. But is he the type of guy who, say, the Blackhawks sign as a 7th defenseman, for $550,000, or he goes to Anaheim or LA? It's possible. I think I'm yes more than no.
No, it's a no. Here's the thing: the last time he played like an 81-game season was 2011. Then he played 68. Then he played 32, 35, 24, and then somehow he got in 53 games, but he only had 20 points. It's not worth it.
See, I with him, I get the same feeling like I did last year with Henrik Talander. He was invited to the Maple Leafs camp. He was playing really well. He probably would have made the team if his former defense partner in Buffalo, Mike Weber, hadn't run him into the boards and broken his shoulder in a preseason game, and that ended his chances of a comeback. But for a team out there who needs like a veteran guy who can step in as a 7th guy, I think there's a chance. So I'm yes more than no on him. We'll see. We'll review the tape later on, Russ.
Yep.
Okay. Number 5. I am 33 years old.
You're not 33.
No, I'm not. No. I dropped. I'm playing the part of the player. I dropped off. My production dropped off after being traded from the team that drafted me, Nashville, to Washington in the deal for Philip Forsberg. I played for the Arizona Coyotes and scored 9 goals last season. Will Martin Erat have a job in the NHL next season?
To start the season, no. He's a big no. He could be a guy, though, that, a month or two in, somebody calls up. But to start the season, no.
I think he's a training camp invite. I think he's like a 50-50 roll of the dice sort of guy that some team will bring in,
I think he's like in this NHL, he's maybe the least useful guy we mentioned on this list because there's no physicality in his game.
Right.
Not much speed left in his game. And so like where do we stand with him? What's left in his game? 9 goals.
Yeah. I mean, it's ironic if you look at his offensive totals once he left Nashville, they just plummeted. And that's a deal that I still don't know what George McPhee was thinking.
Yep.
Last but not least, and I will yield to your expertise on this player. He's the youngest player on the list at 32, tied with Stephen Weiss. He played 31 games last season in goal. His goals against was over 3. His save percentage was under 900, and he has noticeably lost mobility going post to post due to a history of injuries. Will Ray Emery get a job and not in MMA in the NHL?
In the NHL, no. In MMA, you never know. Come on, Ray. Ray might have a future there.
Yeah, along with the oh god, I'm not.
They have like celebrity boxing and they just go goalie for goalie, and Ray Emery just says, "Come on, somebody challenge me. Come on, maybe Dan Cloutier challenges him. Go look at that fight that he had. Look up the fight when he was on the Rangers."
I still think the funniest piece of video that I've ever seen, one of the funniest pieces of video I've ever seen, was Dan Cloutier challenging the Islanders bench, and I believe it was at Nassau Coliseum. It was laughable.
Yeah, Dan Cloutier was nuts. But let's see, how does he stack up? He's 6'1", like around 200, and what's Ray Emery? Let's see.
I think he's 6'4".
Yeah, if he's 6'4", that's going to be 6'2".
6'2", okay.
And
yeah,
they don't have his weight here. Hold on. Wikipedia didn't put his weight. Poor Ray. I mean, they don't even.
Wow. Well, Ray Emery beat the crap out of Marty Baron so badly.
196. Dude, this is a good matchup.
There you go. He beat the crap out of Marty Baron so badly that I think Marty stopped talking for 5 minutes.
Yeah. I don't think that's possible. I know Marty pretty well. No way. But I'm telling you, this is a fight, man. This is Ray Emery, Dan Cloutier. Who would pay for that? I would pay for that.
I'd pay for the rematch of Felix Potvin versus Ron Hextall.
Ron's a GM now. He's not going to get involved in that. Billy Smith's too old. These guys are fairly young. I like this.
Okay.
We have to promote this. It's good. When Eck gets back, he should be promoting this.
Okay. Well, we'll try. We'll have to convince him. Okay. I put this as the headline on the blog, and we talked about it yesterday a little bit. I think it's pretty safe to look at the results of an NHL draft. And I do this with my friends all the time in terms of like going back and looking at some of these drafts and just like shaking my head at the picks that some teams made. If you look at, and just for example, all my friends are Sabre fans, and we went back and looked at the drafting record of Darcy Regier, especially in the first round. And when you had 4 first-round picks within the span of, I think, 7 years who played a collective 10 games in their NHL careers, then you know that the guy was a terrible general manager.
But again, it's not the GM. It's really the director of scouting and his scouts. We got to sort of get away from blaming the GM. He might be the guy that announces it, but all right. But yeah, I get what you're saying. The organization didn't do well. 5 years is the mark. Like, that's when it's fair to look at it.
Yeah, so now we can look back. I think reasonably at the 2010 draft. And I don't know what do you want to do? Do you want to give a thumbs up or thumbs down on the picks?
I would just say, let's do a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And is it necessary that they change their pick? Like, does the pick sort of hold up? I mean, look, we could go all day and move guys up into different spots.
Right.
But I think the way to do it is to say, all right, now that they have a chance, who would it be instead if it's one that needs to redo, if they need a redo?
Right. And I referenced it in the blog, the big debate going into that draft was Taylor versus Tyler.
Yeah, and I went the Taylor route, and I was right in the sense of where he was drafted. But again, you look at the numbers are close. They really are close. And the funny thing is if Taylor Hall didn't have these injuries, he's close to a point-a-game player on a really bad team.
Yeah, and I mean, the funny thing is, I mean, now we're talking about a player that's 23 years old going on 24, and we will see in the next 5 years how Taylor Hall will pan out based on the fact now that he has Connor McDavid probably centering him.
Right.
Or he's playing on the second line with Connor McDavid playing on the first. That takes, the top checkers off of him. But I mean, as of right now, as of this minute, if it was Edmonton, I would have taken Tyler Seguin. I mean, that's sort of retrospective 2020 hindsight. But I mean, at the time, Taylor Hall was the higher rated of the two players.
Yes.
Slightly.
Yep. And look, I still think it's a good pick.
Yeah, it's a good pick, but if taking that Taylor-Tyler debate, I think right now Tyler Seguin is a little bit ahead.
He's a little ahead, but again, if you're Edmonton, that pick holds up. It does.
And obviously the second pick is Seguin with Boston, and I think they hit a home run, and they can thank Brian Burke for that trade.
Yep.
Because that was now and we can take a shovel and we can bury the Phil Kessel deal now because Seguin is in Dallas and Dougie Hamilton's in Calgary and Phil Kessel's in Pittsburgh, and who knows where the hell Jared Knight is.
It's a memory.
Yeah, it's a memory, but every time you look at number 2 overall, Tyler Seguin in Boston, and you think if they hadn't made the deal that he would be a Leaf and he would probably still be in Toronto.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, so let's move past Taylor and Tyler. The number 3 pick was the Florida Panthers, and they took Eric Gudbranson.
Yeah, this is the one they'd like a do-over, although coming into the draft, there was a belief, and I had a belief there was a little bit of offense in his game because he had a big booming shot.
Yeah.
And let's see how many points he did score in juniors, which isn't a great indicator, but at least, 30 points. So I thought there'd be some offense in his game, and last year he had 13 points. So, offense isn't going to come around. So then you look at him and say, well, is he a Chris Pronger type, at least on the defensive end and really tough? He is, but in this slot, you would like to re-slot it if you were Florida. And if Florida had a chance to re-slot it, I think they would go Tarasenko now.
Well, yeah. I mean, we could rip on 15 teams for passing on Tarasenko.
Absolutely. I'm just saying, if they're going to re-slot it, we got to give them a guy to re-slot it with. That's all.
Yeah, and I think that if you look one pick, the next pick. I mean, Gudbranson is a right-hand shot, tough defensive defenseman, but that's not the guy. If you're taking somebody 3rd overall, you want somebody who's more of a two-way player, and he has 9 goals in 245 career NHL games.
He's not going to give you points, but now as a defenseman, he's even been slow in coming around as a shutdown guy too.
Right.
Not saying he's a bad player because I actually think he's improving, but yeah, he's just in that slot. I get it.
Yeah, and you look at Aaron Ekblad, who was taken 2 slots above him now 2 years ago in 2014. Or in the 2014 draft, a year ago.
Yeah.
He's the type of defenseman that I think that they hoped that Gudbranson would end up being, more of a two-way guy.
I don't even think they were hoping for that much, but I think they were hoping for something in between, and they haven't gotten that.
Yeah.
I think that's really the hope.
4th pick overall was the Columbus Blue Jackets taking Ryan Johansson.
Great pick. Holds up.
Pick. It took a while for him. There was a lot of angst with him. He was sent to the minors for a while. He had that great year 2 seasons ago. The contract situation, now he's signed and he's their number 1 center. I think that the only thing that Columbus has to worry about going forward with him is he's only under contract for 2 more years. He's only making $4 million, and he's going to want to make big money And I don't know whether they're going to be able to afford the big money that he's going to want, but it was a good, very good pick.
Yeah, no, that was a pick that really holds up. Like, actually, that's maybe the best pick in the draft in the sense that you can't argue it. It still holds up. Like, I'm not even sure if you redrafted this draft, he wouldn't be right there.
Yeah. No, I mean that I don't think they should have wavered from, or they would have wavered from that pick if they could redraft. The Islanders, the funny thing is, this is like one of the only instances where Garth Snow showed no patience. He kept Bailey, he kept Opozo, he kept most of his first round picks. He traded Nino Niederreiter. He had no patience with him. I guess Niederreiter thought he was ready for the NHL before Snow thought, and they traded him to Minnesota. I don't think he's a fifth pick overall, but I think he's an okay pick here.
He's an okay pick there. Obviously, they would want to reslot it. So, I'm sort of looking at who they might reslot it, and it's a tough call here, but I am going to go and say they probably would have reslotted it with Cam Fowler.
Cam Fowler was the Aaron Rodgers of this draft. He was the guy that was slated to be in the top 5 or 6 and just kept falling and falling and falling until he was picked at number 12. So yeah, and taking into consideration the Islanders' like chronic need for defensemen, it's surprising that they didn't go that direction. Number 6 was Tampa Bay, who takes Brett Connolly.
Yeah, I mean, he really had a lot of talent and physicality and speed, but he went into this draft with a shoulder injury, and he still got injured after the fact. And so that's really derailed him. Maybe with Boston, he's with Boston, right? Maybe with Boston, he'll have a resurgence, but obviously this is one where they would like to reslot it. And so if you reslot it, I think they probably reslot with Jaden Schwartz.
Yeah, Tampa Bay soured on him after his first year. He didn't seem to get as much opportunity or get the chance to prove himself after the first or second year, and it was surprising it took this long for them to trade him, and they traded him to Boston, and maybe he gets a second chance with a different organization, and they're more open-minded with him. Ironically, the number 7 pick, if you would have talked about the draft the year after, I think this guy would have been like, oh, he should have been number 1 pick, which was Skinner. I mean, he had that fantastic
up, and now he's gone down, and now he's sort of leveled off, right?
Yeah, and it's all because of. I mean, the funny thing is, in a league now where people love small players with great speed, he's the one player who's small with great speed that they're scared of because he's had concussion problems.
Right. But I'm still going to leave him in this slot.
Yeah.
I think this is a good pick that is actually held up. And for all those people that would have slotted him higher, now you wouldn't have based on the other thing. That's sort of like an equalizer now. He still gets points. I mean, what did he get last year? Let's see. Skinner last year, 31 points, 18 goals. Certainly off from the year before, which was 54 points and 33 goals. So, he's somewhere in between. So I think the slot's fine for him. I do.
And he has the second amount of career goals behind Sagan in players picked in the first round here. 115 career goals,
right,
as opposed to Sagan with 130. He's ahead of Hall. So
he's probably not going to be a 30-goal guy anymore. That's my point. Like, he's somewhere lower than that now.
And the salary that he's making over 5.
Right. But 5 isn't that big a deal anymore.
Yeah, but that was the reason why he was being shopped, was because they, for the production that they're getting out of him, that's not exactly the type of money that he should be making. So, but we'll see. The 8th pick is Alex Burmistrov. That was the Atlanta Thrashers, now the Winnipeg Jets.
You know what's funny about this pick? It would be easy to reslot it, but I don't think it would be entirely fair because he never really played enough in the NHL to sort of show us what he had. Mm-hmm. And if I reslot him now, he could go and have a 35-goal season and wouldn't shock anybody.
Yeah, but from what I hear, I mean, granted, maybe his development was stunted by the fact that him and Claude Noel hated each other viscerally, and he had to go to the KHL to escape him, and now he's coming back to Winnipeg, and I think he signed a 2-year deal. But from all indications, he's a guy. He's a two-way center, and he's maybe a 15 to 20 goal scorer.
But he's a fast, skilled guy. We don't know. And they're a better team now than they used to be, too. You put him with the right line mate, So I'm gonna leave him alone. I'm gonna say let's leave him here. I think it's more interesting to leave him there.
Okay.
It's not a bad pick. It's and they've got him back somehow, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Ninth pick overall, Minnesota Wild take Michael Granlund. I think this guy is going to improve. I mean, he's been slow in developing. He's had a couple of years where he's been decent. I think he's going to gradually, his impact will be felt in the next 5 years. I think he's a guy who's going to step into, say, the number 2 center role in Minnesota and be a good offensive player.
Yeah, I'm inclined to leave Granlund here because right now he's behind some of these other guys, but the next 3-4 years could be really terrific for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And so based on the potential still, I'm going to leave Granlund alone. Go ahead. You're smiling. Go ahead, buddy. What's the next pick? What are we up to? Oh, I don't know.
Number 10. I'm just going to say it. The Rangers take Dylan McElrath.
Well, I'll quote Pat Leonard on his New York Daily News column today and say that McElrath signed for 1 year, $600,000, a last chance contract. And I think that's fair. Even at 23, even though some defensemen take till 25, and he's had some bad injuries. He has, but he's still not an NHL defenseman in my eyes. I know that Ranger fans got mad at me the other day when I said it, but I still will say it. He might be a guy that plays some games here and there, but he's not an everyday defenseman. And so reslotting this, and you knew that this would be reslotted, it's kind of interesting because you could reslot it with Emerson Edom. You could reslot it with Kevin Hayes. But honestly, I think the fair reslot here is probably Brendan Gallagher.
Yeah, and if the Rangers were going to go for a defenseman, I mean, the next 3 defensemen are all probably going to be playing in the NHL next year, and McElrath probably not.
Because they wanted a defenseman there. They wanted a player with toughness. That's what John Tortorella kept bashing into the scouting department's head, and so they went with a guy with toughness. And my thing was, and I was pretty vocal about it the day it happened, but then, look, I'm a prospect guy. I have to have an open mind. I can't have a bias. The only remark that I said the day he was drafted was, and I still believe in this, you can't draft for toughness because it might take 5 years. Well, now we're 5 years down the line, and I was at least right about that. And I don't think you should ever say that, well, we're drafting for this particular need when it could be so many years down the line.
Yeah, and toughness is probably one of the least important. Yeah, right. Toughness, I mean, that's why like most of the Brian Burke picks in Toronto are failures and have been moved out of Toronto because guys like, and not to say that Tyler Biggs can't be an NHL player down the line somewhere else, but the main motivation for the Leafs picking him and guys like Brad Ross and Jamie Devan, who they just traded a couple days ago, where they're big, tough players. And the league has moved on from toughness as a main characteristic here. And these players are sort of antiquated now.
Right.
So, okay, let's move here quickly. To me, this is, if not McElrath, this might be, and he's 23. He could come back and be a good NHL player. But Jack Campbell was well thought of as a prospect. And last year he played most of the season in the ECHL. So yeah. I'm saying, Dallas is definitely going to move out of this. And I think, I'll use the B word. I think he's close to being a bust.
Yeah, I don't think he's close to being a bust because he's had some injuries. He did win a Calder Cup. We got to give him credit for that.
Sure.
But end of the day, he's not become the number one yet. But Dallas is still sticking with him too. I think we'll reslot this though, because I think that's fair. I think the reslot will be something that Jim Nill could handle, and we're going to put Peter Mrazek in this slot.
Okay.
And I think that's a fair reslot.
Yeah, Anaheim definitely would not move out of Cam Fowler. I think they're still even though I scratch my head every time.
Fowler, you're right. Fowler would stay here. There's no question.
Yeah, every time I hear I heard Cam Fowler trade rumors last summer. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, he's a solid defenseman and he's not making a ton of money. So yeah, I wouldn't understand why Bob Murray would be shopping him unless he thought he's going to cost him more when his contract is up or something of that nature. So. 13th overall, Phoenix takes Brandon Gormley, he's only played 32 games in the NHL. I think they would move out of this pick, but I do think he's going to be an NHL defenseman.
I do too, but I think they'll move out of this pick and we'll put Evgeny Kuznetsov in this spot.
Mm-hmm. St. Louis. Can you say that a team hit a home run with 2 picks in the middle? It's not impossible to hit with picks in the teens of the draft, and we'll put both of these together here. Sandwiched in between Derek Forbert are Jaden Schwartz and Vladimir Tarasenko. Wow.
Tremendous. Yeah, I mean, could be their best first round ever. Like I haven't looked in the annals of the St. Louis Blues, but I can't imagine they've done much better than this.
No.
Because you got 2 guys, 2 starters, 2 long-term players, 2 all-stars, 2 potential all-stars. That's heck of a drafting on them.
And I think Forbert, like you've said many times, and if you look at their situation on the blue line, if Voyanov is unable to play, or that he gets deported, or whatever happens, or if they just decide to move on from him and trade him someplace else, I think Forbert figures into their defensive mix this year.
He does, but I'm going to re-slot it.
Yeah.
Because probably the next guy Michael Fuda liked a lot, at least on their organizational chart, was Tyler Toffoli. And I think if we slotted Tyler Toffoli in here now, it's fair.
Yeah.
Based on what he will be and what his production was last year.
But if you could go back and you're picking 15 and you're taking Forbert and St. Louis, I'll take this Russian guy.
Yeah, but they still, we're still going to have to, even though we re-slotted him much earlier and we know he's higher, we have to leave that alone. But yeah, I think they would have, changed it. And if they would have gone with, if Forbert was a second rounder, no one would look at him. They would look at him in a different way. Let's put it that way.
Okay, 17th overall, Colorado takes Joey Hishon. Now he's been victimized by injuries. I know that. He's only played 13 NHL games. I'm not sure if he's going to have any impact. Maybe the injuries have taken too much of a toll. I mean, I think they would move out of this pick.
They would move out of it. I think you could put like Justin Falk in that spot.
Yep. Yeah. Well,
big rising star. Hasn't quite reached what he's going to be yet either.
Yeah, true. Nashville at 18th takes Austin Watson.
Huh.
I had to look up. I honestly, it's pretty bad. 5 years ago, and I couldn't remember who the hell Austin Watson was. And I know some of these guys. So just 6 career games, 1 career goal, pretty much going nowhere.
No, definitely going nowhere. I think if you want to reslot this one,
the next pick you would reslot for.
Yeah, that's fair. Bukestad might be the next guy on the board anyhow.
Yeah, 19th overall, Florida Panthers take Nick Bukestad, and 41 goals, 159 career games. Big kid, 6'5" or 6'6". They've got him locked up on a long-term deal. Bukestad and Barkov as the future 1-2 is the core that along with Ekblad is the core of the Florida Panthers' future.
Yep, very solid pick.
20th pick overall, Pittsburgh takes Bo Bennett. Here's a guy where, this year is a crap or get off the pot year for him. He signs a 1-year deal for $800,000. He's got all the talent in the world, just doesn't seem to put it together. And you would think that with a requisite amount of talent, and you've got Malk and Crosby, that this guy would be scoring goals. He just hasn't been able to. And right now, I think they would move out of this pick.
Yeah, I think they would too, and I like Bo Bennett a lot. I thought it was a good pick, and he still might be a good player, but he has been up and down. We're going to reslot Mark Stone here.
Okay, I'll leave the reslotting to you. 21, the Detroit Red Wings take Riley Sheehan, and he fits in.
Holds up. Yeah, that holds up.
That holds up. That's a good pick. You're talking.
I watched him in college. I really like this player. Yeah.
And typical of the Red Wings, they have allowed him to slowly develop. I think he played 3 years, either in college or in the AHL. They let him slowly develop, and he's just started to come into the NHL in the last couple seasons.
Yep.
And a solid player, and the type of guy that he's probably going to be with the Wings for years. 22nd pick, Montreal. Takes Jared Tenorti, good bloodline, son of Mark Tenorti. I've seen a lot of Tenorti in the AHL. I don't understand why he hasn't made the Canadiens and stayed with the Canadiens.
Right. And he just got a 2-year deal, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to leave him there because he's a defenseman, and he does have size and physicality. I'm going to leave him there and say, all right, you know what? We're still on the fence about this pick.
Right. And I'm going to leave the 23rd pick, Mark Bizick. I'm going to leave him with Buffalo because they just signed him to a 2-year deal. And like we talked about yesterday, apparently there was a bone of contention between Murray and Nolan about him playing in the NHL, not playing in the NHL. And, maybe he was held back. And it, like you said, it's not a bad thing that he played an extra year in the AHL, but that sort of hinders his progress in the sense of putting up numbers. But I think he's going to be a good NHL defenseman.
Yep.
24th overall, the Chicago Blackhawks. They didn't get a chance to benefit from Kevin Hayes. Some team in New York did.
But you know what? Leaving him in that spot is it's a good pick.
Yeah, very good pick. And ironically, the Blackhawks traded for, once they drafted Kevin Hayes, they traded for his brother Jimmy, and Jimmy and Kevin never. And Jimmy played a few games for them, but their impact was felt with other teams.
Yep. And now Jimmy will be in Boston, and we'll see what he does there.
Yeah, and eventually Kevin will end up there. Okay, 25th overall, the Florida Panthers take Quentin Howden.
Yeah, I think they're going to change their pick, and I think they're going to move up Charlie Coyle.
Yeah. 26th overall, I have Washington staying here with Evgeny Kuznetsov.
In the real reslotting world, obviously he'd be much higher, but this is a heck of a pick. Wow.
And I don't know whether he's going to be a star or if he's just going to be a very good player. But
he's going to be a star, I think.
Okay. Yeah. He does things with the puck that stars do.
Yes.
Here's if Campbell wasn't the biggest bust of the first round, Mark Vizintin, if that's the way you pronounce. I think it's Vizintin. So I'm sorry about that. But he's been so far off the radar, I forgot how to pronounce his name.
Poor Phoenix. This has been a bad draft for them to start. For a bad first round. And you maybe could look at their team now and say, this first round would have been better. How much better would Phoenix be? Now, they've done a decent job last few years, but this was a bad draft for them. So, yeah, they're going to reslot Brock Nelson.
Yeah, and the previous year, they hit a home run, 6th overall. They took OEL.
Yep.
So, it was just a bad year for Don Maloney, apparently, because – well, anyway. Okay, San Jose, 28th overall, Charlie Coyle. They're going to stay there. He, of course –
got traded.
It was part of the Brent Burns deal.
Yeah.
But solid player. I don't think he's got 31 career goals in 190 games. I think he's a second, third line guy, quality player.
I think there's more to come from him.
Yeah. But we're talking 28th overall. We're talking the bottom of the first round. So
but I think there's a lot of upside still.
I agree. And 29th overall, we mentioned him before, Emerson Edom.
Yeah.
Unfulfilled potential. I know in Buffalo they love him because he ripped Buffalo when he was here at the World Juniors. But do you think with the Rangers that he can be more than he has been in Anaheim, which has sort of been an inconsistent guy with a lot of talent?
I think they're trying to slot him in sort of to replace Hagelin in a way, not necessarily his exact spot on the line, but he's got speed. He started to show something last year. And then for some reason, Boudreau didn't like him, and then all of a sudden he fell out of favor again. But to me, he started to show something. I think there is a chance for Emerson Edom. I do. And so this guy had a rough road to just get to the NHL, and so he's never going to make any waves, and I think he's going to give it his all. Unfortunately, he's going to get reslotted, though, and Johan Larsson's going to be the guy going in there.
And finally, 30th overall in the first round, the Islanders take Brock Nelson. I don't think they're moving out of that one.
No, I knew it was a good pick that day. The funny thing about that Brock Nelson pick was I was just about to ask him the first question when he was getting interviewed after the podium. This was back in the bowels where the media hangs out, and somebody then goes, excuse me, hey Brock, congratulations. And it was Kevin Connolly. And he said, sorry about that. To me, and I'm like, hey, no problem, dude. And then I asked Brock Nelson his question. So I'll always remember that. That was kind of interesting that he wanted to do that because he's such a big Islander fan. If you remember, he was at the draft table.
Right. And a gold star to the Dallas Stars and the Montreal Canadiens in the 5th round, who take John Klingberg and Brendan Gallagher. And in the 7th round, I believe it was, 6th round, last 178th overall, 6th round pick, the Ottawa Senators take Mark Stone.
Well, and Fast was a 6th rounder too, and that's the only guy that's panned out for the Rangers, because I knew Christian Thomas wasn't going to be an NHLer. He's played some games. He'll play a few more, but he's not a very good player, right? Do you like Christian Thomas as a player?
I like him because I liked his dad. I mean,
he's not a good NHLer, right?
Yeah, I think he's too small. But I mean, you know what? His dad was. A lot of people thought he was too small. He was a tough guy and he had a great shot. And I've seen Christian Thomas play some AHL games, and I think he's got talent. I just don't know if he's ever going to
level. He's terrific, but then once you push him up, then his flaws show. So the Rangers rolled the dice on that one. It was bad. It was one of the worst drafts for the Rangers, other than getting Fast in the 6th round. But what was interesting here that still showed up was that you were still able to get Euros late in this draft. Now it's becoming increasingly harder to do that.
Yeah. And the Mr. Irrelevant in this draft has played 29 games in the NHL, and that's Zach Trotman.
Yeah, that's good.
That's not for the 210th pick overall.
And here's the thing about that. There really isn't a Mr. Irrelevant in hockey as much as there is in football, because usually in football that guy never plays. Right? But in hockey, sometimes they do play. Kim Janssen was the last guy in the draft for the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
Kim Janssen had a heck of a career. So those guys seem to play more in hockey. I could be wrong. I don't have the hard data, but that's just my opinion on that.
Well, good stuff, Russ. I'm sure we'll probably do the 2011 draft next year.
Maybe.
Good.
Sounds like a good thing to do during the summer.
Yeah, I was going to say probably in mid-July when Ek is on vacation. Okay. Well, we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Buzzcast. We're sort of free-flowing here in terms of a lineup, so we'll put that on the blog early in the morning tomorrow, so you can tune in. For Russ Cohen, this is Michael Agello of HockeyBuzz.com. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.